Peace everyone, Unmask Art here and welcome back to the Pastel tutorial. Today we are continuing the Wawel Castle project and we're actually going to start the castle. So I got a few new colors here that I'm going to share with you before I get started. Let me just grab them really quick. So we got this brown 640. This yellow I believe we used in the grass. This is a 205. My favorite Ninja Purple 642 and 670. And then I have 704, which is a gray color, 215 orange, and then I have black as well. Probably use some white. I have white over here. I always have black and white on hand, so should always have those colors handy. Hello, Chandri, Suyath. I am not sure how to pronounce that name. That is one of the more difficult names I've come across. And Arnie, good to see all of you guys. Thank you for coming by. Anyways, I'm going to start off with a bit of orange. Actually, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to start off with my dark brown, the 640, and I'm going to kind of like sketch in a little bit of the dimensions of the castle wall right here. I have some line art that's on the paper, and so I'm just kind of going over that line art there, just so that I don't lose my details, if you can even call them details. Now I'm going to go with the 215, the orange. I never realized how orange the castle is, but it's more of like a what's that, like a clay color, like that orange clay, that red clay dirt color. That's what it looks more like, but it has a lot of orange tones in it, and I'm just going to use orange as the base color. I don't quite have the exact color that I'd like, but close enough. And so I'm just going to do one little section at a time and see how it goes. And of course, if you guys have any questions for me, don't hesitate to ask. Hope everyone had a good weekend. And hopefully your week is going quite well also, since it is Tuesday. I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of sort of losing track of the days. They're all just blending together. All right, let's bring in a little bit of brown now with the 670. This is kind of an orangier brown. I'm not going to really worry about texture just yet. What I'm more concerned about is just making sure that I get my values correct, making sure that I get like the lighting and the dimensions. And really, I mean, if you isolate this small part of the castle wall, you're not really going to recognize what it is. I mean, you're going to notice that it's architecture of some kind, but sometimes when you isolate parts of a subject, you get caught up trying to make it look like what it's supposed to look like, or what you know it is, when in reality a lot of people would look at it and not really be able to guess what it is. So you just want to make it look like what that small part of the reference photo actually looks like as well. I'm gonna be layering this color with the orange and all of the colors and kind of blending them together to get the actual color that I'm looking for. Where's my blender? There it is. So I'm gonna just use my little blender to kind of smooth it out and mix those colors together. Oh, hey, what's up, Christian? Sneaks, Riham, Catrice, Rosella, Diane. Hey, did I miss anybody else? Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Thank you guys for coming by and hanging out. Appreciate it. All right, there's a, my tape is all unsticky again. All right, so let's see here. Let's add a little bit of the 642, bring a little bit of the kind of purpley tones in the shadows here. Like I said, it's all just gonna kind of be playing with the colors to get the mix just right. Getting slowly working in all of the values, everything that makes this part of the castle look like the reference photo. That's the end game here. What are the colors that I'm using? Yeah, so I share all the colors that I'm using. Every time I change a pencil, I'll let you know what color. And I'm using only Carbothello pastel pencils. Alright, let's use a touch of black, some of those darker shadows in there. And then here, I'm going to use a little bit of black to kind of fade the shadow into the bricks. This little corner here is like the northwest corner of the wall, and then right behind it, this big stone ramp that you walk up to enter the main gate. Right, this tower right here, you walk under, has a little archway that you walk through, and then right when you walk through, there's still like a stone laid courtyard, and then just to the left is the entrance to the chapel, which is this little part. I don't know, yeah, this little part that sticks out, and that's the top of the church. This little section here is actually grass because there's the grass kind of goes up, and then the wall gets short, and then it gets tall again. There's a little grass part that comes up, but it's really shaded, so I actually forgot to add it to the grass last time. This part here is also grass, but it's really black and you don't really see it all that much. So I'm just going to grab a bit of green, give that grass a dark shadow, and then there's a little bit of light that's hitting the top part of the grass, so I'll just I'll hit that with the brighter green. What's your opinion on pastel board? I actually don't have an opinion on it because I've never used it. I only use Pastel Matte for pastels. I've tried a few other different papers. Pastel Matte is the easiest for me to get in my location, and so I don't go out of my way to try to get papers that aren't readily available to me, and this paper works perfectly, so I just don't have any need. But maybe in the future I'll experiment a little bit more with a few different papers. There we go. Just blend out that grass a little bit, and it's just kind of dark in the back there. Do I like watercolors? I like watercolor paintings. I'm not particularly fond of using watercolors myself. There's something that I haven't really explored fully. I'm using the 205 yellow to bring in a little bit of light into this wall here. But it's definitely something that I'd like to get more experience with. I just have an unfortunate limitation to my space, and adding watercolors into my studio would just not be feasible at the moment. I have let's see, I have some clay that I'd love to do some sculpting with, but I don't have any room to do it. I have like I have a whole bunch of paper and stuff that I can keep drawing and painting on, but I don't have any room for my finished artwork. Uh, and then I have an airbrush that I have barely used ever, and I'd love to use it, but again, there's just no space. How to clean your paper stumps? That's a good question. So I use sandpaper. These Faber-Castell, yeah, they don't have to be Faber-Castell, but these are pencil sharpeners, and I think that they're mainly supposed to be used for like charcoal. Don't quote me on that, I'm not 100% sure. But it's just 2 grits of sandpaper. I believe it's like 800 and 600 grit. That's what it feels like to me anyway. And then what you do with the paper blender is you don't go back and forth, you pull it. So you pull it, and that will clean off all of the colors and stuff. And it'll give you a nice tip to give you a lot of control with the blender. So that's how I clean them. All right, yeah, I'm using some gray now, the 704. I'm using the gray to kind of tone down these colors because they're a bit too vibrant in some spots. So that's a good way to, neutralize some oversaturation if you happen to get a bit too excited with your colors, is you can just kind of mix a little bit of gray on top of them, and that should give you a good mix to tone down the colors a bit. All right, a little bit of 670. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody's questions. If I ever miss any of your questions, don't hesitate to ask it again. Sometimes it's just hard to keep track of the chat while I'm working, so don't feel like I ignored your question or anything. I probably just missed it. What colors am I using now? Yeah, at the beginning of the live stream, here, you can pause it. Here's all the colors. So there's all the colors I'm using now. How do I replace your pencils? I just buy them individually. Yeah. I buy them individually from Jackson's Art Supply. I'm gonna use a little bit more black back here to darken this part of the wall. It's a little bit too bright. It's supposed to be darker than the rest. And then I use some of the 640 darker brown. That way it doesn't, lose all its color. It has a little bit of color. There we go. Now it looks a little bit farther back than the other part of the wall, which it should. I had a little fuzzy on my blender. There we go. And now I'll just kind of smooth out the other colors a little bit, and then I think I'll just use some of the 640 brown to create a little bit of texture in the wall, just kind of make it stone brick-like, I guess, by adding a few small dashed lines. So I kind of am making bricks. I'm kind of like drawing really small bricks. just a hint of texture. All right, and that does that. So I'm going to move on to this next part. How can an artist who loves many mediums and can't justify each medium? I'm not entirely sure how to answer that question. Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that question. Did I ever share the reference photo? Yes. So these live tutorials, they are usually not public. They're usually only for my patrons, and I'm using black right now to darken in this shaded area here between the trees, by the way. And because of the chaos of what's going on in the world right now, I decided to open up all of my private live streams, my private tutorials for everybody on YouTube, so that hopefully I can give you a little bit of entertainment while the world is on lockdown. And the reference photo and all of the other things that I supply my patrons with, they still are the only ones that get that stuff. So the reference photo and stuff, the line art and the reference photo, patrons only have access to that. All right, let's add a little bit of brown. This is the 640 brown. I just want the wall to be somewhat distinguished from the color of the trees, because the trees have the green, and the wall is a little bit more orange brown, but it's still very dark. So the colors themselves are extremely similar to one another, but I just need them to be distinguishable ever so slightly. So I'm just going to layer a little bit of brown, a little bit of orange, and a little bit of black until I get just a different tone for the wall in general. So I'm going to use a little bit of the 215 orange. And then I'll use some more black, and I'll kind of just do the process repeatedly until I get it dark enough to look like it's supposed to. A little bit of black here, and I'm going to go a little bit heavier with the black. It won't be a pure black. I still want those other colors to show through a little bit. And then when I blend it out, they'll all kind of mix together. And then I'll probably blend it once I add another layer of the brown. And that should give me something relatively close. What's my opinion on pastel primers? Don't have one. I've never heard of a pastel primer, so can't have an opinion on something I don't know. Never heard of it. Faber-Castell pastel pencil colors. Oh, I'm not using any Faber-Castell pastel pencils. I'm only using Carbothellos. Oh, hey there, Anna. Good to see ya. Alright, I'm going to do another quick pass of the 670 brown. And then I'm going to smooth it out with the blender, and then I'll probably have to add more black because that kind of feels like it lightened it up a lot more than I wanted. So I'm just going to kind of smooth it out, and then see how I feel about it. I think I'll darken up the bottom more. The bottom is a bit darker than the other parts, so yeah. So I'll use the orange first, the 215, and I'll just brighten up the top part a little bit, where some of the light is kind of hitting a bit more. Just a small amount, and then I'm going to use black down at the bottom and really kind of hide the wall within the trees. Still don't want to make it like pure black or anything, just darker brown. Really, really dark. Yeah, that's better. And then I'll just smooth that out one last time. There we go. And now I'll work on those buildings up there. I'm going to start with some gray, the 704 gray. This tower in the back here, and let's see, it has a white brick base, kind of like this. Wall stops, so it's this shape here, kind of this rectangle. This is the white brick, or pale tan, whatever you want to call it. So that color kind of sticks out a little bit. And then at the bottom base of this part here is also tan, light, like light grayish tan. So I'll just put that in, and yeah. And then this one has like a little window thing here that is tan. All right, that's good. And now I'll do a base coat of orange, or actually no, I want to preserve the details, so I'm going to use my black pencil really quick for some of the details, for just like the shadows that come in a little bit. Like this top part of this roof is not lit, so I'll just kind of darken that little section right there. Here's the corner of this building, so I'll just kind of draw in that little corner. Then there's this shadow here, and then a partition of the wall there and right there. And I'll just separate these buildings with a thin black line. There we go. And let's see. I'm going to put the windows on after the fact, but I will put the roof in. Which is just a triangle shape at the top. And it's not really black, but it's so close to black you can just get away with just making it black. The size of the paper that I'm using is 30 by 40 centimeters, and it's pastel matte. Pretty sure it's 30 by 40 centimeters. Yeah, it's 30 by 40. So I'm zoomed in quite a bit. You can see like a quarter of the page at this point. This is a rather tedious part of the project. So I really have no idea how much I'll be able to finish today. But I'll finish what I can. And hopefully it will start to look like a castle a little bit. All right, now I'm going to do a little bit of orange, just a light base color. This part here is part of the wall that's coming over. And then the top part here is a little orange. It's more brown than orange. And then the rest of this is the red orange brick as well. So I'm just going to ignore all the windows, all the details. I'm just going to do a base layer of orange here real quick. And this one has a light shining on it, and it's very, very bright. So I'll try to map out a little bit of that light source. Oh, hey there, Rob. Welcome. And then this back side of the building, this side is the shaded side, so it's a bit darker. So there's the base for the orange. I'm going to use some white really quick to kind of map out where that light is. So you have like this window. Hold on a second, there's some color on the tip of my pencil. There. So you have like this window that shows up really light, and most of this side here is very, very bright. So I'm just going to kind of scribble in some white where that light source is, and then I'll work around it, just slowly darkening it until I get it to look the way that I want it to. Same thing here, this building is being hit with a little bit of light, so I'll just throw some white in there. Alright, that should be good. And now I'll just use another, like a darker color. This is the 670 brown. So I'll just use this to start darkening the shaded part of the buildings. So really, let's see, it has like these windows, top of the windows up here. So I'm just going to sketch in that for reference really quick. And then this top section is quite a bit darker than the bottom, because it's like elevated out. I don't know how to describe it. Hard to describe, but it's wider than the part below it. And so the light kind of stops at this edge of where the windows are at. And you can do a lot of the mapping out of the values and the shadows and stuff with just like a light layer of black, and to bring back the color, you just add color over top of it. All right, let's see. This side over here in general is a bit darker. This is the shadow side. The light isn't quite hitting it. Considering joining my Patreon, how much pastel work do I do as opposed to colored pencil? So that's a great question, Pamela, and I hope you join over on Patreon. So I do 2 live tutorials every week on Patreon. Not to mention that I already have like a huge library. So when you sign up on Patreon, you get access to the library of tutorials. I have somewhere around 250 tutorials. Half of those are pastels. So easily there's 100 tutorials on just pastels. And then I'd say another 100 are colored pencils. And then there's a few extra ones in there. I recently did a tutorial on using the grid method to draw. I've done a few graphite tutorials. I've done a 2-point perspective tutorial. I've done a couple Photoshop tutorials scattered in there. There's a lot of content on there. And every week on Tuesday, I live stream, like I am now, a pastel tutorial. and then every Thursday is colored pencil. So once a week is a pastel tutorial. Anyways, let's grab some black and just darken up this shadow here. It kind of runs across the building slanted like this. So I'm just going to kind of run a little bit of black there. And a little bit of the 640 brown. So I'm ignoring the details. I'm just focused on like the broad shapes of the building for now. And then let's see, I like the 670 brown. I'm gonna add a little bit more of that. Tone down the orange because it's a little less orange than the wall and it's a little bit more brown. And I'll use some of the gray probably to pull out the saturation since it's a little bright. And then I will splash a little bit of yellow right around where it's highlighted because it kind of turns yellow with the light. Hello, Christian, again. All right, now I'm going to use some of the 642. This is also a really good color. I'm going to use this to kind of smooth the colors together and just kind of get a good blend overall. And let's see here. Yeah, let's add a little bit of the gray, the 704. This is going to pull out some of the color once I blend it, kind of tone down the saturation overall. All right, now let's grab the blender and let's just smooth some of the pencil out, see what we're working with here. Don't forget this little section of the wall that we did down there. Yeah, that's really close to the color that I was looking for. Yeah, that looks good. Kind of sharpen up the rooftop a little bit, but aside from that, it's starting to look pretty good. And then we can put in some of the details to make it look even closer to the reference. The pastel pencils are this Stabilo Carbothellos. I don't like Derwent. I don't like Derwent pastel pencils. They're terrible, in my opinion. There we go. All right, now I'm gonna grab the black. Try to get a little bit more detailed on the roofs here. There we go. When you're working with these like finer details, with the black here, it isn't about pressing harder to get the sharp lines. What's more important is a very light touch and repetition. That's how you get the clean edges. It isn't pressing hard. Pressing hard actually does the opposite, because then the pencil starts to crumble and you get a bunch of nonsense. All right, let's add a little bit of details here. So we have this edge there. Then we have a window here, and it's surrounded by gray. I'm going to use white because I don't think the gray is going to show up enough, so I'm going to use white here. Yeah, white is the way to go. There we go, put in that little window. And then up at the top we have these little portholes up here, tiny little, they're probably ventilation because they're really small, just kind of like holes up there. So I imagine it's ventilation of some kind, I don't know. And then we have a pair of windows on either side here and here. And right there. And only on that side can you actually like see in the window. And then those are of course surrounded by the white frame again. So just use a touch of white. And I mean, these details are so small that really you just want to get the impression of what it is you're making. Trying to get it exactly is going to be impossible considering how small the details are. When details are beyond the precision of the human hand, you just want to get like the broad shape, and they'll appear well enough to a standard viewer, to somebody that's, you know, not looking at this under a microscope. Because right now you guys are zoomed in closer than what you would be seeing in person. Just so you're able to see the project and see how I'm moving and what I'm doing exactly. I'm going to add a little bit of white up here just to brighten that part of the wall. And then I'm going to use, let's see, dark brown, just to crisp up this edge over here. Right along the sky. There we go. Yeah. And then same thing like I did on the wall. I'm just going to add a few little dashed lines to give it like a brick-like texture since it's made of brick. So a few small dashed lines. I don't want them to show up like really obviously. I just want them to kind of show up just enough. There. Just enough to where it creates just a subtle amount of texture. And there we go. There's the first part. That looks pretty good. Let's see. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody's question. I'm just going through the chat really quick to see if I missed any questions. What was this castle ever someone's home or more like a monastery? I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know a lot of the history of Wawel Castle. You know, it's like 400, 500 years old or something like that. I imagine that people lived there. That's my thought. I imagine that somebody lived there, or multiple people lived there. But I don't know. Maybe the main feature was the church, perhaps. Not sure. The church could also be a new addition to the whole thing overall. I'm speaking of the church. I'm gonna color in the church now, and it's mostly just white, and it has like a hint of like a goldish. But I'm gonna do the shadow parts, just the dark parts of of the church that has a window here. Tip on the windows, make the windows a lot smaller than you think they should be, and then slowly make them bigger. Don't try to make the windows exactly the way they are. Instead, just make them in the right spot, and then worry about the size once you have them put in a little bit. There we go. A little bit of black up there, and I'm just gonna hit a few of these spots with some yellow to bring out the goldish look. A little bit of yellow and a little bit of the orange brown. That's gonna be close enough to the gold. So this 670 color, just a little bit of that, not too much. I mean, you only really need it to be implied that there's some gold there. And then I'm going to use a little bit of the gray, the 704, and just kind of create a little bit of three-dimensional quality to it. So give it some shadow on the right side, a little bit of shadows there, and then I'll cover it with white and blend it out, and then we'll be done with the church. Alright, so now some white. With the white, make sure that the tip doesn't have any color on it, because that could be bad. And I'm just going to go over all the blank spots. That way they're not blank. And then grab my blender. Also be careful with the blender. I'm gonna have to clean it. I gotta clean it before I, go in there with the white. So I'm just going to use my sandpaper. Just want to make sure that I don't have any color on there, because smearing it into the white is not going to be very favorable. There, that should be good. Yeah. So now I'm just going to kind of smooth out the colors there. And then I do need to raise up the little thing at the top. Just a little bit of extra white right there. And some of the details, just make them a little bit taller. When I cut the masking film to cover everything, I left that a little blank. Alright, there we go. That's good. Now I think I'm going to do the roof of this main building here. So I'm just going to grab black. This building has a lot of green moss on it, or ivy. What is it called? I don't even know what it's called. Oh, hey there, Iris. What do I think about electric sharpener? I exclusively use an electric sharpener. Yeah, I exclusively use an electric sharpener, so I really, really like it. After my recommendation of the Jakar, I'm into it totally, but discovered differences of opinion. Yeah, I think there'll always be differences of opinion. Everything in art is subjective. If I had, yeah, I've been using my Jacquard electric sharpener for over a year now, and I have not been kind to it. I have put it through the true test of whether or not it's worth recommending, whether or not it's worth buying. And to this day, I still recommend it because I not only have I been using it for over a year now, but I've only changed the blade once. I changed the blade. I probably changed it prematurely. I changed it after a month and a half of use, partially because I had sharpened every single pencil that I owned twice over within that month, or within that month and a half. And I did that because I wanted to test it out before I recommended it to people. And so I really, really tested it out that first month. I just kept sharpening pencils, colored pencils, pastel pencils, and I have probably upwards of like 5,000 or 6,000 pencils. So I sharpened a lot of pencils, and I just felt like it probably needed a blade change. It just felt like it was time for it. And when I originally bought it, I bought it with 2 extra blades, with the intention of, making sure that I'm using a new blade. And I think anytime you invest in a sharpener, it would be in your best interest to have replacement blades, because you're going to have to change it eventually, so you might as well preemptively get it. It's kind of like getting an electric toothbrush. You always buy replacement things for it. I don't know what do you call toothbrush replacements? What are those called? Electric toothbrush thingies? I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, you get the point. Yeah, so after I changed it after that first month, I have not changed it yet. It has been over a year. Been about 14 months since I changed the blade. So. Oh, hey, Cece. Glad you're able to come to the live stream. So the roof of this building isn't totally black, but it's certainly real close. And so once I get the black covered, I can just apply a few colors over top of it to get it the right color, because there's a little bit of light, so it's a little bit brighter over here than it is over here. But overall, it's kind of a reddish brown. And you'll notice that when I'm drawing my lines, I'm pushing the pencil. You're going to get a sharper line if you do this, as opposed to trying to drag the tip of the pencil. So I recommend pushing into the point of the pencil when you are drawing lines like that. Whether you decide to use a ruler or not. And you can use a ruler. What you have to do, the secret to using a ruler with pastels is just wrap the ruler in glassine paper. Once you wrap the ruler in glassine paper, you can set it on your painting and it'll be fine. I mean, I wouldn't recommend like pushing down on it real hard or sliding it around, but you can certainly lay it there and use it as a ruler to get sharp lines, sharp straight lines. I considered doing it, but I don't think it's worth the trouble. Let's see. Let's add a little bit of orange. Yeah, a little bit of orange over here, just to brighten the roof a tiny bit. And this is going to be very subtle, so if you can't see it, don't worry about it. Very, very subtle. A little bit of the orange brown, 670, for that reddish tint. There we go. And then just grab the blender and smooth it out. Go. Get rid of all those little white spots where the paper's not quite covered. Now it's completely covered. Perfect. Oh wow, those little building parts took a really long time. Now I'm going to take green. I'm just going to take a nice bright green. This is the 570. We use this color in the grass. I always keep the colors that I'm using on a project collected so that I don't have to like hunt around for them. And now that I think about it, there's a lot of windows that I have to work around. I'll try to like draw around the windows. So I'm going to draw basically the shape of my vines. Yeah, there's a light right here, so around that bottom edge of that window there. And I mean, truthfully, it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, if you get it close enough, anybody without access to the reference photo is going to believe whatever it is you're putting in there. So don't feel like you have to stress yourself out with precision. See, it kind of goes up to the roof here, and it goes up to the roof on this side too. So like over top of the window. There's a hard edge here. I'm going to use black. Use black because there's a separation in the wall right there. And then moss kind of, or vines, whatever, ivy. It's ivy, right? This would be ivy. Yeah, it comes over here, and then there's another separation. Oh, I already drew that separation. Yeah, there's a window here, So I'm just going to work around that window. There's a window here, so I'll work around that window. This whole wall here is covered, all this area, all of that's covered. And then there's one more window here, below that one. Haven't been around much, so how are you? How is the situation in Poland with everything going on in the world? Well, first off, I am doing quite well, thank you. I just cut my own hair, like a few hours ago. Yeah. So this is the first quarantine haircut for myself. It was getting way out of hand. Oh goodness, it was so bad. It was getting real bad. And the situation in Poland is pretty much like it is everywhere. And total lockdown. Nobody's allowed to go outside. The grocery store is a bit stressful. You know, you're not allowed to go in without washing your hands and wearing gloves. So there's a little security guy that stands there to make sure that you are wearing gloves, and then also only a limited number of people are allowed in. So sometimes you'll have to stand in line. But aside from that, yeah. Last time I checked, Poland had about 6,000 cases, somewhere around that number. So relatively low end in terms of other parts of the world. I've been fortunate enough to not having I've not my family and myself and anybody that I know. I don't know anybody that's been affected by it yet. So hopefully it will remain that way until until it's over. So I've been fortunate in that regard, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Not much else. I've been streaming over on Twitch recently as well. I keep forgetting to put my Twitch in the description. If you guys want to follow me on Twitch, it's the same name. My Twitch channel is also Unmask Art, but I don't do art. I play chess. So if you want to follow me on Twitch, you can do that. You can just go to Twitch and search Unmask Art, and I'll pop up. Yeah, that's been kind of fun. I have a chess coach also, and I've been helping him set up to stream, and he should be streaming for the first time today as well. So I'm gonna go hang out and watch his chess stream sometime later today. He said he'd probably be streaming in the evening, so lots and lots of chess. So much chess. That's funny, Rob. Yeah, give yourself just the standard buzz cut, I presume. Now that I have all the windows mapped out, I'm just going in and filling in where all of the ivy on the building is. Yeah, Oh, let's, oh wait, did I put that wall in the wrong spot? Yeah, I put that wall in the wrong spot. It's supposed to be here. No big deal. Yeah, I'll just fill in this. Yeah, this section here is supposed to be filled in. There we go. And there's another separation right here. Yeah, there we go. All right, I'm just gonna set that green aside, and now I'm gonna do the other parts of the wall. And I think I'm just gonna do that with a base color of the 642. Yeah. So I'm just gonna work around. This is gonna be kind of tedious because you gotta work around all the windows, but you should, if you get to this point in the project, you're probably used to the tediousness. So just keep at it. I would say the easiest way to approach these windows is to treat them like negative space. So for instance, this line here represents the top part of the windows, and then there's very small windows above it. So what I'll do is I'll draw the line that goes below those small windows, and then the line above those small windows up here, like that. So now we have this long rectangular window, and then what you'll do is you'll just come in here and do the vertical parts, and then you'll just space them out like so, and you have your windows, which didn't actually require a lot of, you know, anything. Didn't require a lot of skill. It's not too difficult. So again, so the moss represents part of the bottom of the window line. So here's the bottom part of those windows. That's the top part of those windows, remember? And then there's a little bit around this window. So this one's probably the most difficult window. Just like that. And then again, we'll just space them out. So there's 5 windows here. I'll see if I can do this properly. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there we go. There's kind of the layout, and just refine those sides a little bit. That way your windows look somewhat even, just like that. And they look a little big, to be honest with you. They look a little tall. So I'm just going to shrink them down by going across the bottom a little bit, across the top a little bit, just make them the right size. And now they look a little too wide, so I'm just going to shrink them down. And in this case, I'm making, since the windows are a negative space as opposed to a positive space. So for instance, when we did the part of the church, I said, you know, those dark windows, those dark spots that are the windows on the top of the church there, make them really small, and then slowly, gradually get them bigger until they're the right size. Because making those black spots smaller when the rest of the church is white, it's not possible. It's just not going to work. But in this case, we're doing the opposite. Instead, we are treating the windows as negative space. We're leaving them blank. That's what negative space means. The black is positive space because you're adding a shape. And so in this case, you want to make the windows bigger than what they are, because you're able to shrink them down. So that's what you need to do here. You need to shrink those windows down to the right size. So make them a little bit bigger than what you think they should be. And then once you feel like you got them close, just refine until you get them to be the right shape, and you'll be good to go from there. Let's see here. Yes, yes, it is warming up here in Poland. I no longer have to wear a hoodie around my flat 24/7, so that's great. Um, I can finally stream without sleeves. It's been quite warm. The weather has been fantastic, which is kind of driving me crazy because I just want to go outside and walk around, but you're not allowed to do that. So no one gets to enjoy the good weather. We like the past couple weeks, it has really started to get nice here in Poland. Is it a good idea to use a ruler for people that can't draw a straight line? Yes, yes, absolutely. Using a ruler, there's no, yeah, I have nothing against using a ruler. Perfectly acceptable, so don't even worry about it. And as I mentioned, to use a ruler on top of a pastel painting, simply take the ruler and wrap it in glassine paper, and you should be good to go. And again, even though it's in glassine paper, doesn't mean that you can just haphazardly slide it around the painting. Still got to be careful with it, but you'll be able to lay it down and get your straight lines that way. So. For my architecture drawing here or whatever, I kind of like I kind of like the non-straight line look. I just feel like it makes the buildings look more organic. And some people might prefer, the really sharp, clean, perfectly straight lines. And I kind of like the free-handed look better. I kind of have a preference for that. It feels more fairy tale like, I think, if that makes sense. All right, let's see. This one has a lot of the windows too. So again, just drawing like the bottom line of the windows, the top line of the windows, and then I'll space them out. Same thing with these windows. I can see my line art a lot better here. It must have gotten rubbed off on that other side of the building, because I can see these windows much easier. There we go. What is this building used for? It's not used particularly for anything that I'm aware of, but it is still, the church is still used. Like, if you were a Catholic, which I'm not, you could go to Sunday Mass in the church that's at Wawel Castle if you wanted to. In fact, that's true for all of the castles in Poland that have churches, which all of them do from from my experience, I have yet to see a castle in Poland that does not have a church. And then of course there's like a cafe or whatever in there that you can go and eat, but I mean the main thing about it is that it's a tourist attraction. Yeah, so you any given day you go there and you'll just see a whole bunch of Chinese people walking around with their cameras and their goofy hats. Oh, hey Mache, good to see you. Yeah, we walked around Wawel Castle, Cece. We walked all around Krakow when you were here. Yeah, you gotta come back and experience our new favorite restaurants, Vegano and Vegatotu. I'm using the 670 color here, by the way. And then I might use a little bit of the gray. Get the right color. Yeah, obviously the moss or the ivy. Gosh darn it, it's ivy. That will also have to be reworked. Give it some texture, give it the right color and value and all of that as well. Oh, let's see here. Let's go with a bit of dark brown. I'm going to do some dark brown for some of the shadows. This is a 640. A little bit of the dark brown here. Wherever things get shaded, like over here, this side, just a bit shaded here. And then down here. Oh, I don't know why. Why is that? It's not there. I'm going to add a little bit of black. This is part of the wall actually down here. I'm going to add some black and darken that, and a bit of orange. The orange is the 215, by the way. There. And it looks too uneven there, so I'm going to just flatten that out. There. Now it looks like the wall. What now? Oh, gray. Gray, gray, gray. Yes. I think what I'll do with the gray, I'm trying to think of how to approach these windows, because it's not really black. So I might use the dark brown, but I'll have to sharpen it. So I'm going to use some of the gray here to tone down the purpley reddish of the brick, because it's a bit sandier. So just a little bit of the gray here over top of all of that red brown. I think that will give me the right color tone for the bricks there. I can't remember if I told you already, but I loved your painting titled "The Queen." Oh, thank you, Rob. That is the first time anybody's brought that painting up. Yeah, I'm glad that you liked it. Yeah, I have it. It sits on my dresser. I'm still waiting to finish it actually, because I need to varnish it, and I'm gonna varnish it with a really nice high gloss varnish, and just make it really pop. And if you've never varnished an oil painting, it makes a world of a difference. It brings out all the colors, makes everything just pop off well, in my case, the canvas. I mean the panel. Yeah, it just makes the colors really shine through. And of course, I haven't done it yet because one, I had to wait for it to dry. It's been about I finished it in September, I think. Yeah, I finished it in September. So it's been like 6 months or something. I can't count. Yeah, I think it's been long enough, but I also wanted to wait for the weather to warm up because in cold weather, varnish doesn't like cold weather. So, all right, let's take the brown. Yeah, I'm gonna try it with the 640 and put in some of the details of the windows. They're just not super black, and so I don't want to use black for the details in the windows. Just going to use a little bit of the darker brown. And basically it's like 2 dots and 2 dashes for the windows here, leaving the window frames blank. Yeah, these are very tough here. Do I know anything about Polish Post currently not sending mail internationally? I haven't heard anything like that. And I imagine that I would hear something like that. Because my wife, she works in a business that does a lot of mailing. So I haven't heard anything like that. Do I know anything? Oh, yeah, I already answered that. Yeah. Oh, okay. Macie. You're just talking about the situation here in Poland. Yeah, I talked a little bit about the situation. How do I store my paintings to keep the dust off while they dry? Vertically. That's really the only thing you can do. You can't cover an oil painting. You cannot cover an oil painting. So the only thing that you can do is store them vertically. Or I suppose maybe you could get away with storing them invertedly if you have such a way of doing it. That's always a possibility, but that's essentially all you can do. I mean, yeah. I was gonna say that maybe you could like drape it with plastic, but you have to make sure there's plenty of airflow, because without the airflow, it's gonna not dry, right? Because that's why oil paint doesn't dry in the tubes, because there's no airflow. So if you cover it with plastic, it's not going to dry. So yeah, it's really dust. Dust can be an issue, but don't sand things around it, I guess. I haven't really ever come across much of an issue with dust with my oil paintings. And if I were to if I were to ever have to deal with dust, it would be right now with that painting, because my flat is incredibly dusty because all of the buildings are made of concrete, and so there's just a constant flow and an absurd amount of dust always building up. And I don't I don't notice it on my painting, so everything is good. But you can, what I mean by storing them invertedly is uh, if you have like two like panels or whatever, you know, you'd kind of place the painting up like this, and this would be the actual painted side. But if you turn it the other way, where the painted side is faced down slightly, then that could also mitigate a lot of the dust collection as well, because, well, dust does not flow upwards, so it's going to have hard time sticking to the painting. If the painting is facing down slightly, it will help a little bit, because you know you don't have to dust the ceiling, because dust does not settle on a ceiling. Okie dokie. Windows are in, looking pretty good. Just that crazy green moss thing that I got to deal with now, and let's do that now. Do you have to clean them before you varnish them? Yeah, you can dust off an oil painting. Yeah, you just take a brush. You can use, like, if you want to use a really delicate brush, which you probably will want to use a delicate brush. You can use like a fan brush or something and dust it off. You can even take a, you know, like a fan brush or whatever with a tiny bit of solvent. So like some of the you know what I mean, solvent that you use with oil painting. Yeah, you can use a little bit of that, and it won't take off the paint. But you want to be really careful with it. But you could do that. You could do that if the dust was like, you know, real bad or something. But for the most part, you can just kind of use a rag or a brush and just be delicate about it. I'm using 585 green, by the way, and I'm just gonna put a bunch of little dots on my moss. I gotta stop calling it moss. It's not moss, it's ivy. I'm just gonna color in my ivy here. Eventually I'll get it right. Just a bunch of texture and stuff for the ivy. Gamasol, yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think of the name that I use, but I don't know the name of the paint thinner that I use. I think I have some of it. I don't know which one. I see. I think I changed. Did I? No. Yeah, I didn't change the brand, but it's some crazy Polish word that I can't remember off the top of my head. It's nothing fancy, just plain everyday solvent, odorless solvent. kind of scribbling with this color to create as much texture as I can. I reconsidered doing dots because I want the texture to be different than the trees. And I used dots on the trees to create like the leaf-like texture. And in this case, I just want the ivy to be uniquely different. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of crosshatch and just squiggly scribbled lines to make it like a diverse texture to differentiate it from the trees. It's a subtle detail, or a subtle change in detail, but it's enough to make it look distinguishable from the texture of the trees, since it's not as leafy as trees are. And it's pretty close to the right value. I'm going to use another darker green that has a little bit of blue in it. Okay, Arnie. Yeah, you take care. You have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. This darker green here is the 595. Just going to kind of darken up some of the spots on the moss. Oh my gosh. Ivy. Still can't get it right. Probably used a little bit of black here too, for some of the darker spots. A little bit of color diversity. All right, let's use some black. Some of the really dark spots. Oh, thank you, Jones. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you over on Patreon. Appreciate that. In fact, all of you that are over on Patreon helping support my channel, I greatly appreciate it. I really do. And if there's ever anything that I can do for you guys, just let me know. I try to do as much as I can to make all of the tutorials as good as I am capable of making them. Just know that I don't take your support for granted. I truly do appreciate it. And I want to give back as much as I can. Well, I want to give you guys as much as I can, as as far as content goes and tutorials and stuff like that. So if you ever have any ideas on something, any ideas on what tutorial you want to see next, I always try to take every suggestion into consideration. I'm just adding a little bit of black here to the building now. It just feels a little bit too bright in comparison to the moss. So just giving it a little bit of shadow. All right, let's take the blender now. Kind of smooth out the colors and also kind of cover up the paper a little bit more. I don't think I need my piece of glassine paper. Just be real delicate with it. Try to move the pigment on across the paper to cover it. You can use this to sharpen up the lines around your windows also. And I think after I do this, I'm going to call it a day. Made a lot of progress I think I made more progress than I anticipated. So this project will be coming to an end very soon. Next week will be the last week that I work on this project. So next week, what we'll do is I'll finish up this part of the castle here, and then I will show you how I'm going to do the lights. So for those of you that have seen the reference photo, the lights have this kind of glow to them, and it's an effect that you get when you take a long exposure shot with a really like a really wide depth of field. So the aperture ring is really, really small. Aperture rings, they have blades, and they create like a polygon shape. And that polygon shape, depending on how many corners it has, determines how much light spikes, I guess you can call them, that you get from light sources. And so you can see that in the reference photo, all of the lights and stuff have a bunch of spikes coming from them, and we're going to do something similar to the reference photo. I'm going to give them a little bit of a light spike, I guess you can call it. I don't know the technical term for it. It's kind of like a lens flare, a little bit of a lens flare on all the lights. So we'll do that, finish up that part of the building, finish up the lights, and then of course everybody's favorite, I will untape the edges and show you what the final painting looks like. But I think that is going to do it for today. Just going to finish kind of smoothing out some of the ivy. So if you guys have any last questions before I go, feel free to ask them real quickly. And I'll, of course, see you on Thursday. We're going to continue on our fantasy druid colored pencil project. And that one's going to be coming to a close probably next week also. I think Thursday for that project, I think I'll do the hair. Yeah, so I think we'll do the hair on Thursday, and then the following week when we finish up this, we'll also finish up that by doing her moss dress. All right. That does it right there. So that is going to be it for today. So thank you guys so much for coming by and hanging out. As I mentioned, you can follow me over on Twitch if you wanna hang out with me while I play chess. A little bit different, but either way, it's still me. Anyways, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I will see you on Thursday. Take care. Peace.